Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're delving into something really critical, the ongoing challenge of poverty in the Philippines. It's a country we know for its, vibrant spirit, incredible resilience. But there's this deep struggle underneath. We're going to unpack this idea, this pretty powerful idea, that maybe corruption is the main driver. So our mission here is to really assess that. Is corruption truly the root cause of the economic problems there? We'll explore its complexity, its impact, using insights from, well, various articles, research reports, surveys. And actually, if you're looking for more fascinating insights like the ones we're discussing, you should definitely check out Mind Expansion Daily. Honestly, it's where we get so much great information. Okay, so let's start by getting a sense of the scale. What does poverty actually look like in the Philippines now? The 2023 Philippine Statistics Authority figures mention what, 16.6% out of 115 million people.
That's right. It's a staggering number. Millions facing hardship daily.
And when we talk about corruption in this context, what exactly do we mean? Can you define that for us?
Absolutely. Fundamentally, we're talking about the abuse of entrusted power for private gain. Simple definition. But it shows up in so many ways. You've got bribery, officials demanding kickbacks for basic services. Then there's embezzlement, basically siphoning public money straight into private accounts. And of course, nepotism, favoring family, and cronyism, rewarding political allies. They're deeply rooted. What's really striking here is this isn't abstract, it's tangible. It affects daily life. For context, look at the 2024 Corruption Perceptions Index from Transparency International. The Philippines ranks 115 out of 180. Score of 34 out of 100. That signals really widespread corruption, touching everything from, say, local permits to huge national deals.
Pervasive is the word. So, okay, how does this actually hit the average person? Can you give us some concrete, maybe devastating examples?
Well, one of the most infamous, one that really sticks in people's minds, is the 2013 Priority Development Assistance Fund scam, the PDAF scam. It was just shocking. Lawmakers basically diverted around 10 billion pesos, that's like $200 million, meant for community projects. Instead, the money got funneled into these fake NGOs, non-governmental organizations, and then pocketed through kickbacks. Figures like Janet Naples were right at the center.
Wow. 10 billion pesos. Beyond just the stolen money, what did that kind of thing do to public trust and development?
Oh, the consequences were huge. Directly, that graft meant money didn't go to schools, hospitals, roads, which, directly fuels poverty. And trust. It just plummeted. A 2014 survey, I think it was SWS, found 78% of Filipinos doubted government integrity after that. Corruption really is like an economic parasite. There was a 2023 World Bank report. It estimated corruption cost the Philippines about 20% of its annual budget.
20%.
Yeah, 20%. Imagine trying to run a country or even just a household with a fifth of your resources just disappearing every year. It's not a small leak. It's a massive hole.
A fifth of the budget. That's just mind-boggling. Help us picture that. What could that money do for ordinary families if it wasn't lost?
It's a huge missed opportunity, isn't it? That amount could fund something like 12 million monthly cash transfers for poor families through programs like the 4Ps, the Pantawid, Pamilyang Pilipino program. But instead, it often vanishes into ghost projects that don't exist or pays for substandard roads that crumble after a year. No lasting benefit.
And it's not just about the money disappearing from the budget, right? This kind of environment must send a terrible signal outwards, affecting foreign investment.
Exactly. Foreign investment is so critical for creating jobs, for sustainable growth. Yet a 2024 Asian Business Outlook survey found 65% of investors citing corruption as a top barrier in the Philippines. 65%. Compare that to Vietnam, where it was about 30%. Big difference. And we see real examples. Like in 2019, a German firm scrapped a $500 million solar project in Luzon. Why? Demands for bribes. They went to Indonesia instead.
So that's capital just walking away.
Taking jobs and opportunities with it, it's not abstract theory, it's real economic damage.
And that links directly back to people's lives. The 10.9% unemployment rate reported for 2024, millions more stuck in low-paying, insecure, informal work. It feels like a cycle that's hard to break.
It is a vicious cycle, and it also breeds serious social instability. I mean, when ordinary citizens see the elite getting richer while basic services fail them, trust just collapses. There was a Pulse Asia survey in 2025. 82% of Filipinos believe corruption makes poverty worse, and 60% feel the system is rigged for the wealthy. That fuels real resentment. We saw it boil over in things like the 2013 million people march against that PDAF scam, people demanding accountability.
And the service failures you mentioned? They can be heartbreakingly specific, like in parts of Mindanao, rural areas with poverty rates around 30%. You hear about health funds being diverted by corrupt officials, so clinics end up understaffed without basic supplies.
Exactly. And it has direct health consequences. A 2024 UNICEF report noted 1.2 million Filipino children lacking basic vaccinations. Why? Partly because budgets were mismanaged or siphoned off. That puts lives at risk.
Which brings us to another layer. Inefficiency. It seems like corruption breeds inefficiency, doesn't
It
it?
absolutely does. They often go hand in hand. When the priority is personal gain, not public service, everything slows down, breaks down. Think about the 2020 Department of Health scandal during COVID. Huge amounts, like 7.5 billion pesos, meant for pandemic response, were misused for things like vastly overpriced PPE that directly delayed getting supplies to hospitals when they were desperately needed. A WHO report linked this kind of mismanagement to about 20% of Filipinos lacking healthcare access in 2021. It deepens the poverty trap.
And what about just everyday bureaucracy? The red tape, is that linked too?
Often, yes. It can be fueled by corrupt gatekeeping. You mentioned starting a business. Imagine needing a permit in Manila. It can take 60, even 90 days. Compare that to Singapore, maybe 5 days. That huge delay, that friction, often involves unofficial payments just to move things along. It kills entrepreneurship, especially for small players, and adds to underemployment, which is around 22% in 2024.
Even big government projects get hit, right? I remember the Build, Build, Build initiative under Duterte. Big promises.
Huge promises, but the reality, only about 60% of the projects were finished by 2022. And reports, like from the Department of Public Works and Highways, suggested around 30% went over budget, often linked to kickbacks and graft. Grand plans undermined from within.
Which leads right into this critical problem. Lack of accountability. Transparency seems key. If corruption thrives in the dark, how bad is the situation in the Philippines regarding accountability?
It's a major weakness. The mechanisms are there on paper, but enforcement is weak. The Ombudsman's office reports really low conviction rates for corruption cases, something like only 15% between 2015 and 2024.
15%, that's tiny.
It is. And think back to that massive PDAF scam. How many high-profile figures, like senators implicated, were actually convicted by 2025? Very few. Maybe 3 out of 20. Political connections often provide insulation.
So impunity is a real issue.
It creates this powerful disincentive, doesn't it? If the risk is low and the reward is high, why stop? Transparency is also lacking. That Freedom of Information Act, proposed way back in 2016, still stalled. That limits the public's ability to see what's happening with their money. Contracts that with, say, New Zealand, #1 on the CPI. They have things like real-time budget tracking. Studies suggest it helped cut their graft significantly.
Without that sunlight, it's hard to hold anyone accountable.
Exactly. It just perpetuates the cycle.
And maybe the cumulative impact, the tragedy of it all, is best seen in specific cases. That the Tampacon mining fiasco you mentioned earlier. Huge promises, right? Billions in revenue, thousands of jobs from this massive copper-gold project started in the 90s.
Incredible promise on paper. $5.9 billion in revenue, 10,000 jobs.
But the reality...
A disaster. Corrupt deals led to incredibly weak environmental oversight. Illegal permits were allegedly issued. The result: landslides, serious river contamination. About 5,000 indigenous families were displaced.
And the revenue. The jobs.
The project stalled. By 2025, basically zero revenue had materialized for the affected communities. It shows how corruption doesn't just steal money, it destroys environments, displaces people, and wastes massive economic potential. It entrenches poverty in the worst ways.
It really paints a picture of just how deep this problem runs.
Yeah.
But it does raise a really important question. Corruption's impact is undeniable, devastating. But is it the only major reason for the Philippines' persistent poverty? Or are other factors just as important?
That's a really crucial point, and no, it's almost certainly not the sole culprit. While corruption is, without doubt, a massive weight dragging the country down, we have to acknowledge other big structural issues that contribute to poverty on their own and often make the impact of corruption even worse. It creates this vicious cycle.
Okay, let's touch on those. What else is at play? You mentioned things like tax evasion.
Right. Tax evasion is estimated to be around 26%. That costs the government something like 400 billion pesos a year, money that could fund services.
And reliance on remittances.
Yeah.
Money sent home from Filipinos working abroad.
That's about 10% of the GDP. It helps families survive, definitely, but it doesn't necessarily build sustainable, broad-based economic growth at home.
What about education?
Big gaps there, too. Around 30% of young people lack secondary education. That limits job prospects, limits social mobility, regardless of corruption levels.
And then there's the geography, the natural disasters.
Exactly. The Philippines is incredibly vulnerable. Think about Typhoon Odette in 2021. The cost was estimated at $12 billion.
$12 billion.
Yeah. That's massive resources diverted from development to just recovery and rebuilding over and over again. So these factors definitely compound the problem.
Okay, so it's complex. Corruption is a huge piece, maybe the biggest piece, but not the whole puzzle. Given that complexity, what are the solutions? What systemic reforms are actually needed to make progress?
Well, it has to be comprehensive. You need an ecosystem of accountability, not just one silver bullet. Strengthening institutions is key. Give the ombudsman real teeth, independent funding. Maybe model it after something like Hong Kong's ICK, which actually recovered about $1 billion in assets in 2023. And finally, pass a strong Freedom of Information Act. Give citizens the power to see what's going on.
Technology can help too, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Leverage digital platforms. The Philippines' own 2024 e-budget portal is a step. It, fully implemented for real-time tracking, estimates suggest it could cut graft by maybe 15%. And then you need real consequences, harsher penalties. Look at Indonesia. They have life imprisonment for major plunder cases. That sends a message.
Make impunity unthinkable.
That's the goal. Not just illegal, but unthinkable.
And there are positive examples elsewhere, aren't there? Rwanda often comes up.
Yes. Rwanda's journey is quite remarkable. Once deeply affected by corruption, they've climbed significantly on the CPI rankings. How? Partly through digitizing government services, making things transparent, and enforcing strict zero-tolerance policies. And the results. They've lifted about 1 million people out of poverty since 2010. It shows transformation is possible.
So embracing things like e-governance, strong whistleblower protection, these could be paths for the Philippines too.
Definitely. And it's not just top-down reforms. Grassroots accountability matters immensely. Community involvement, like those barangay-level anti-corruption councils piloted in Cebu in 2024. Early results suggested they reduced local graft by about 20%.
So empowering local communities to watch over local projects.
Exactly. Making sure the money intended for them actually gets to them. Building transparency from the ground up.
And if the Philippines could seriously tackle this,
Yeah.
the potential upside seems enormous.
Yeah.
Economically, socially.
Oh, absolutely. That 2023 Asian Development Bank study we mentioned, it estimated a potential 7% boost to GDP if corruption fell to Singapore's level.
7% GDP boost?
Yeah. That could translate into maybe 2 million new jobs by 2030 and potentially attract an extra $10 billion in foreign investment each year. That's genuinely transformative.
And socially, beyond the economics.
You'd see trust rebound. Surveys suggest most Filipinos, maybe 85%, would strongly support a transparent government they could believe in, and services would improve dramatically. Imagine thousands of new classrooms built with recovered funds, clinics fully staffed and supplied. These improvements in health, education, they directly lift people out of poverty. They break the cycle.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. Our deep dive suggests corruption is, well, a central, incredibly damaging force holding back the Philippines. It drains the budget, scares off investment, fuels unrest. We saw it in the PDAF scam, the Tampakan fiasco. The cost is just immense, made worse by inefficiency and impunity.
Right. But, as we stressed, it's likely not the only major factor. Structural issues like natural disasters, education gaps, they play a big role too.
But the path forward seems clear, even if it's difficult. Systemic reforms focusing on transparency, real accountability, tougher penalties. Inspired by successes like Rwanda and leveraging both technology and grassroots action.
A Philippines with much lower corruption could unlock huge economic potential and achieve far greater social equity. It really requires collective will, though.
It does, which leads to maybe a final thought.
If we pull back and look at the bigger picture, is corruption truly the main barrier preventing the Philippines from reaching its potential? Or are some of these other deep-seated factors equally, or perhaps even more, significant in the long run?
That's definitely something to ponder. We really hope this deep dive has given you, our listeners, plenty to think about. If you found it valuable, please do take a second to like this deep dive. And subscribe to Mind Expansion Daily for more explorations like this one. And we genuinely want to hear from you. What stood out most to you from today's discussion? Do you agree with the assessment that corruption is the primary barrier for the Philippines? Or do you lean towards thinking other factors are just as critical? Leave us a comment below. We'd love to read your thoughts. Thanks so much for joining us on the Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.